Right, so I am going to try to see where everyone is here today, and see how we can connect. I have so many good things to share with all of you, but I am on the new tech today, so it'll take me just a minute to understand all of this stuff. And I'm also hanging out with my friends at TikTok. So I have such a fun thing to share with all of you today. Lots of things on my first trip over this past 18 months. My first airplane trip over the past 2 days. Fascinating. But I wanted to, I'm going to give some of you on the Facebook time to be able to jump on, because that's what I'm jumping on here for. But my team keeps telling me to bring in TikTok as well. So I'm going to do what I can. I wanted to show you all a fun, I just came home to this shirt from a friend of mine. She said she saw it. You know, I wrote the book, You're Lying Inside. Hello, Miss Debbie. And so I wanted to honor it by going ahead and sharing that here today. She said, I saw this and I had to send it to you. So how fun was that? How fun was that? So interesting experience that happened before I share with you the airport. I want to ask all the women out there, I need your help on something that happened, because I know I'm not the only one. So I get home late last night and I am tired, and I could not find my regular keys in my car, in my suitcase. And so I was so tired that I decided to go to my spare key that I carry in my car. And so my spare key looks like this. It's very, very tiny. What happened is the key fob broke off of it. And so I've been carrying that around for a while. So I was so tired, and I said in my head, well, I can't find my regular keys. Surely this key, right, would turn the car on. And so I go in the car and I go to turn it on, and it starts, the starter goes like rah, 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 and nothing happens. And I'm so exhausted. I'm thinking, okay, I can't get home. My battery's dead or something's wrong. And so I end up taking an Uber home. Hello, Miss Shannon and Diane. I knew y'all would like that. All right, so I get home this morning. My husband is sweet, and hello, Miss Sonia, gets her sweet, and he says, let's go get a battery. We'll go to the airport and fix it up. Well, so we go to the airport, and you know what happens, right? We go to the airport, and by this time I'm awake, and I find my regular keys. Okay, so I'm going to hold them like this, my regular keys, my regular key fob. I go in the car, and it starts immediately. And he looks at me, and I'm like, it didn't do this last night. I don't know what to do. So we go, and we go all the way home, and we go to get ready to change the battery. We can't do it. We go back to the auto parts store. When I finally got there this morning with auto parts store, I started to think of something. And I said to my husband, I said, honey, when I got in late last night, I tried to start the car with this. The auto parts guy is there, I'm here. And I said this, and I said, this is the regular key, isn't it? Surely it would start the car. Now, I want to know how many other women, if you had carried a little broken part of your key fob with you, would you have thought, my car is 2005. It's not even the newest technology. So I want an honest confession before I share with you what I learned, because I had a major aha. So would you have thought this would have started the car? I mean, I want a yes, a no, maybe. I never thought about it. Something, okay? Help me out here. So what I learned at Auto Parts today was that this will simply, yay, Kathleen, this will simply open the car door, but it will not start it because it does not have the signal. It does not have the signal. So, okay, all right, Katie, I'm thanking you. Sarah, I thank you. I thought this little thing would get me in and start my car and move on, right? Well, they taught me a very important thing this morning. I'm going to tie this into a lesson that we have for both men and women, because it was like, oh. In my head, okay, my husband had asked me, Kim, what happened when you turned the key? And I said nothing, meaning like it didn't start, we didn't go, nothing, because I was thinking about the whole picture. In my head, I had not connected the fact that I even heard a little bit of a turn. That's what he was asking me about. And so he jokes and says, Kim, that's not nothing. All right. So I'm also a person who will look for my keys while holding them. Katie, that's funny. So I learned this and I was like, well, that's fascinating. I just never thought of that. You know, how many of us, this was 2005, not new technology. So my husband and I are at breakfast and we're having a conversation, and I was really, in my head, I was like, I have a key, it should start the car. And he's like, no, there's not the signal. And then we got into this big discussion, my sweet sisters and my dear brothers, about the fact, I know I'm not the only one, I see some smiles over here too, about the battery. And he starts to describe to me about how the battery works and how I should have known, and, you know, a lot of really good information. Now, I know I'm not alone as a woman who wasn't really, we weren't exposed to those kind of things when we were younger. Maybe they're better about that now, but I never really learned how battery worked. I really don't even understand the mechanics of a car. Anybody else? Anybody else? Well, here's the epiphany, and this is what I want to share with us all as we're going through these changes. As he was explaining very detailed about how the battery of the car worked, and the lithium and the positive and the negative and the electrons and the protons, all of a sudden, all of the ahas in my head went off. And that's when I was like, okay. So I told you that last week I was visiting a tachyon healing chamber in Waynesboro, Virginia. And they were also describing to me about these tachyons are particles similar to electrons and protons, move faster than the speed of light. Well, when I was listening to my husband, and I thought about last week, because he thought that was woo-woo, and many people, they thought that was woo-woo. It was fascinating to me and actually quite healing for me. What I realized is that many of the men in our life are very good at the physical, at the 3D, at explaining all of these connections. But here's what's fun, dear ones. Here's what's fun. That many of us as women, we for a very long time have understood the intuitive, things that are not necessarily of this world or things that you can see, right? Because that's simply what we tune into. That's how we're designed. That's how we're designed. Well, then it made me realize that as we go through this next period of time and we have all of these new ahas in life, women have a unique ability to explain those spiritual matters and things that are past what we can see. We can explain those in ways that the men that are in our lives that are important to us, in ways like using a battery example. And so it struck me, I was like, so here's what's interesting. He doesn't believe in things that are unseen, and he's not the only one. I know a number of them, and things that are unseen, but yet they believe in a signal that this goes from the key, from the key fob, sends a signal, and he was very delicately explaining to me how his key fob can stay in his pocket, and he doesn't even have to respond, have to push a key. So on one level, we in society believe in things we cannot see. Hear me out. We believe in the garage door opening. It sends a signal, we can't see it. We believe in picking up our phones, knowing that somebody will be on the other end. We believe in doing broadcasts like this. Someone will be on the other end. We believe in turning the Wi-Fi on or chiming in and joining in on the Wi-Fi at many places that we go to. We turn a radio station, if any of you listen to the radio anymore, and expect to be able to tune into different stations. We tune into a GPS, but we can't see the GPS signal. Do you see where I'm going? So we as humans, we believe in some things that we cannot see. And isn't that fascinating? Isn't it fascinating how we believe in some things that we cannot see? Hello, Miss Mary Lou, and others that we can. So it's just, I wanted to pass that nugget along. So the lesson is that we have all kinds of examples in our physical world that will help us who are tuned in to the other side, who are tuned into the divine, who are tuned into those things that cannot be seen very clearly. I mean, to us, many of us, it seems as clear as someone who is sitting here right across the hall, right across the table from me. We can use the analogies from what's happening in today's world. So wanted to pass that along. I thought that was funny, and I thought you might get a chuckle. I'm not the only one. So my trip through the airport. I used to travel, for those of you that don't know me, I used to travel 2 to 3 weeks a month. I mean, I've traveled for 25 years, a lot of my career. And so this is the first time that I had not traveled in 18 months. 18 months. So when COVID hit last Friday, March 13th, 2020, everything in my business crashed for several months until things went back virtual this fall, and now things are great. And so I went to go see a coaching client yesterday. So I go into the airport. And I'm in a little airport in South Carolina. We don't do the mask thing really around the state as much. It's not a requirement. We all know that life has been very different. So I was a little anxious going into a situation where you had to wear them all the time. Well, the first thing I noticed when I walked into the airport is that my little airport had so many now barriers to security that when I looked around, it reminded me of North Korea. Of Korea. So years ago, I went and spoke. I spoke over across the world, and I had a layover in Korea, and I was supposed to be going through South Korea, and I accidentally crossed over into North Korea. The thing is that when you're in long lines, it's very easy to get confused internationally. I quickly came back out, but they had to shake their head because they're like, you Americans shouldn't be here. But the thing that I noticed at some of the airports I was at over there in Korea and in other countries is how many of these securities had so many barriers. And it was like I went back in time when I walked into the airport yesterday. So that was a bit startling. The only thing missing were the guards carrying AK-47s or AK-15s. I remember being very intimidated when I had that first experience many years ago. And Marjorie, thank you. I know I'm not the only one. Appreciate that. So I was really surprised at how much it looked like it. I was very curious that in the airports, I know there's a federal mandate, but there were many, many people who were sitting beside no one. I mean, there was no one within 25 feet of them. Didn't understand why we had to still have masks. I did notice that, you know, after I traveled before 9/11 and after 9/11, I was on the road 2 weeks after 9/11 happened. In that part of time, in that period of my life, I was involved with fear, like we have so many of the population that is now. What I recognized in those airports is they are literally, and this is my personal opinion, for the first time, my eyes were opened. My eyes were opened to see that it felt like a propaganda station. I mean, literally, when I finally put all the pieces together, you were continuously assaulted with signs and directions and orders from the people and lots of announcements. You know, I don't know if many of you remember, but there was a time that you could travel that you could not, there were not all the TVs, there was not all the noise that was at the airports. It used to be a pretty enjoyable experience. Far from not the only one. But I remember being in airports all those years ago, and I always wondered, why do they have to announce the seatbelt issue over and over and over? Well, what happened is, as we listened to the seatbelt issue, it became part of the routine. How many of us have ever flown and we really don't even listen to the announcements because it becomes just chatter in the back of our minds? Well, I thought about how we've had a slow slide from seatbelt announcements to then 9/11 happening, and we had all those announcements about do not leave your bag, report someone if you see a bag. And then here we are all these years later having the same kind of thing around all of the federal mandates right now. These things are connected. I found it very, very fascinating. It also gave me a new appreciation for people who are in jobs that are having to wear masks all day long. What I recognized having to wear one for that many hours is that your breath literally starts to become shallow. You stop breathing as much. There is a significant difference in the way that you breathe. Our breath is our connection with the divine. I want to make that really clear to everybody. That has been one of the most important things. A lot of conversations I have with leaders is about remembering to breathe. When I'm with groups, I have them inhale and exhale with me because that connects the energy, that connects us to the divine. And what I recognize is that connection was certainly being interrupted. Well, the other thing I chuckled at some point is no matter how glamorous we make all these masks, if everyone's around you is a mask, everyone looks like a criminal. That was just so funny, the way you can't even see and communicate with people like you normally would. I also was surprised at how much more often you end up touching your face when you have to wear it that much, because you're always adjusting. And to me, that was almost an option for more germs. The thing that was most sobering for me is I was watching, obviously there's been a lot of chaos in the airports. I mean, I was watching the systems on multiple levels have a real struggle yesterday, the past 2 days. And the first flight I heard one flight attendant actually talking to someone and saying that they were tired of this mask issue, and that if someone did not cooperate, she was almost bragging on some level. If someone did not cooperate with the mask issue, then they could warn them 2 times, and then they could be put on the no-fly list, without even letting the passenger know. And that was startling. I was like, wow. Talk about power. And so I understand there's been a lot of challenges, but there was a moment there that I was like, wow, that is a great deal of power. That was sobering. The other thing that really struck me, and I felt bad, is that it sounded like almost professional babysitting by the time we finished the flight. Put up your seat, put up your phone, put it on airplane mode, put the mask, put your bag under. I mean, the list of things that we were having to be told to do, it was exhausting for us to listen to, and it was exhausting for them. And I got into a conversation with one of them, and one that was actually sitting in the airport when all heck was breaking loose behind us because there were flight problems. She looked weary, and I really felt for her. And the only time you can not have the mask is if you're eating or drinking. And she said it's just been a really rough year. I've heard that from many, many people. Yes, well, Barbara, I've actually been over there. So Barbara on my Facebook Live here said, when I see a lot of masks, I always think of China. Sure. I've been over to China and spoken over there. And when I was in Shanghai, it was startling to me how many times when I would ask the hotel staff things, they would say, well, the state doesn't allow that. The state doesn't allow that. The state doesn't allow that. I mean, even down to the point when I was exercising in a exercise room by myself, I always did the elliptical, and I always lifted weights with the elliptical. I've done that my whole life. And when I was lifting weights over in China on the elliptical, the woman who was cleaning reported me to the manager because she said it was dangerous, and I was asked to get off the elliptical with the weights because they were trying to protect me. I remember being livid. I mean, I was like, what? Who are you to... I don't need that protection. Thank you very much. I didn't ask for that. So I had that experience when I was there for several days and saw that they literally stopped thinking on their own. They just did what they were told. And whatever anybody questioned, they were said, the state said this, the state said that, the state said that. So there were certainly some parallels. I only comment on that because of what Barbara said. I walked out of that country with much appreciation for the freedoms that we have here in the United States. But I know I have a lot of international sisters all over the world, a lot of international sisters and brothers. And the thing is, dear ones, is that I want to simply offer you that there really are a lot of wonderful things coming our way. I know it looks like chaos. Being in the middle of all of that yesterday, I got to tell you, it was, I was like, get me out of here. And such a world of difference between the different states, the ones that I flew up to in the Northeast and where I live, a world of difference. And people stop questioning. When you get battered enough, you stop questioning. I was even talking with like my drivers and things like that, explaining to me about why they did things and why did they get the vaccine. And I had one driver that actually explained to me that he threatened his wife with a divorce if she didn't get it, because they wanted to go to the Broadway show in November. And then in the same conversation, I just simply listen, I just listen. And in the same conversation, he also explained to me that he felt like COVID was nothing more than the flu and it simply needed to run its course. And I was like, wow. So the more we are hit with messages, I know there's a lot of science behind that. The more we're hit with messages, the more exhausted we become, and we just simply take the path of least resistance. We're like, please, just, and we tune out. And then it becomes like the announcements that we would hear in the airport. But here's the thing, is that all of those things still play in our psyche. Think about how we in society have been led to believe that being sick is a natural state. Think about this for a minute. Every time that we're watching TV and there's a commercial on the television about some kind of new medicine, we hear as much or more about all the sickness that can happen as we do about the benefits. Now, we've lived through this so much in life that we don't even see it. We don't even listen. We don't even tune into it. But I have to tell you, going through the experience the past 2 days really reminded me of how all of those subconscious messages play into our psyche. And so I want to offer you here today to level up in your awareness, be more mindful of all the things that are somehow tap dancing in your psyche, and recognize and know when we're being influenced. This goes all the way back to Edward Bernays, the gentleman who had the first PR campaign in the United States, when he actually talked, did a whole campaign to talk women into smoking cigarettes. And that's what ended up launching the cigarette campaign. They made it fashionable. So be very mindful of what you're allowing in your fields right now, dear ones, because this is going to be an exciting time, but we need to stay the course. And part of what's happening with the awakening that's happening all over the world is that we're being shown, for those of us that are awake and interested, we're being shown how all of this happened in the past, how all these things that we thought were normal were not. And I think there's going to be great power in that someday. So I offer that to you as just an experience from one sweet sister to another, dear ones. I want to just send you lots of love and goodness. It did take me effort to get through that. And the whole way that I got through the last 2 days was thinking about sending as much love and light through the world and goodness all the way through. So every step I took through the airports, through the cities, was to bring as much goodness as I could, and know that you have that power too. So simply wanted to offer that to you today. I thought you'd get a kick out of the key fob conversation. I think there's a lot that can be said to learn about how to connect those ideas, because the ideas that we're going to need in the future are already here. So I'm sending you all much love, much light, and thought you would enjoy. I'm sending you a little bit of your lion inside. Have a great day, everyone. Until next time.